Do you want to nuke?
Welcome back to the Daily Rundown. Now, MPs are debating whether to renew Trident, sparking cross-party tensions on the nuclear deterrent. The vote comes after it was revealed that the submarines that house the missiles will become obsolete by the end of the decade. Prime Minister Theresa May said today that it would be an act of gross irresponsibility for the UK to abandon its nuclear weapons programme. Labour is split on the issue, with Jeremy Corbyn opposing the renewal but allowing the party to have a free vote. Caroline Lucas, MP for the Green Party, has said that Trident doesn't work as a deterrent, and Mrs May responded by accusing critics of being the first to defend the country's enemies. Splitting people across the country, will definitely split in those parties. Where do you stand on Trident, David? I'm interested.
Well,
I've got to David first every time.
Do you want to go first?
I think
I'll let you go first.
Okay, it's quite sensitive issue, isn't it? Nuclear weapons. Deep down there, I think England probably needs some.
You feel we do? Okay.
I do, because when you have something behind you, you come across as a stronger country, person, company, and I would think how to approach and offend you. So I think
you feel it does work as a deterrent?
Yes, I think my opinion, we need some.
Yeah. David, what do you think?
We definitely need Trident. I don't know if it's the best package, but it's cost £1 billion a year. It's cheap. And we need nuclear deterrence, because that was really what prevented a war between us and Russia. And it would turn it, nobody's going to invade our island. Well, we've got nuclear weapons, definitely. And we'll probably never have to use them, but you never know. And I think it's, if it weren't for nuclear weapons, I think there would have been a third world war in the 50s and 60s between Russia and America, which would have been a disaster. The nuclear weapons, although it's 20,000, 30,000 in each side, that almost was a third world war if it weren't for Khrushchev and Kennedy coming to an arrangement on the Cuban Missile Crisis. That was, I was 7 years old when that happened, and I remember watching it on TV. We thought it was the end of the world. And there were a couple of other incidents since, but I do think the nuclear deterrent is good for us, because we're not going to use them. But if we have to use them, we'd only use them if they were used against us. As
a reaction. Are they at this stage though? I mean, because we've been reading today, they're very, very easy to track. There's only one in operation at any time. They're very easy to track. So surely, you just track where that is destroyed. It might be oversimplifying it.
But I agree.
And then do the nuclear attack on the country, if that's what it came to.
I agree with David. You having them for them to be visible, and for others to be determined that they are there, because they never been used and they won't be used. The one thing you need to understand: if a nuclear weapon being shot, the response will come back, and nothing will be left from that. And look at UK; it's a tiny island. Right? Not much needed. But so they are there, everybody can see them, found them, detect them, and sort of you have something on the back to protect yourself, and exactly when you're talking to somebody to other countries, negotiating something, you have something behind you. I don't think it will ever happen in Russia will bomb anybody, because they understand it will come back to them as well.
Same thing.
Exactly the same.
People might use it.
But when in political negotiation, you do feel like you're stronger when you have, unfortunately, you have nuclear weapons behind you.
This is like
it's, I'm saying this, and I came from the country where so many people died during the Second World War, but it was completely different war. So if war happens now, it's not going to last long, and especially if nuclear weapons will be deployed, it will be decided probably in seconds. We won't be here anymore.
There are people out there who think that they can get away with, certain military people, with limited nuclear war. And maybe they can. But I think the whole thing is an insurance of nobody's going to invade or attack your country if you've got nuclear weapons.
Or they will think twice before they do it.
They'll think twice before they do it. And that protects us also from, say, Turkey went wild and came across the whole of Europe and then got boats and wanted to invade the UK. We could just nuke them, right? That would stop them and they'd fall apart. So it's the Samson formula. If we're going to go, we'll take the rest of the world with us. But
And you feel that is the deterrent?
Nobody has the right to attack your country.
In the first place.
And I think if that's for defensive purposes, obviously no politician would want to set off a nuclear weapon. Churchill, his last speech in Parliament in 1955, is before he retired. I forgot the name of it. It was something to do with the sinews of peace, I think it was called. And he talked about, because they just got the hydrogen bomb, the second part of the nuclear bombing. The whole concept of it frightened him. The fact that we'd use these weapons. We've got the weapons, but we never want them to use them. But unfortunately, you can't believe that the other side are going to disarm themselves. I think the Soviets, with the SALT talks, and the Soviets and the Americans did reduce their arsenal, which is a good thing. As long as we're not going to use them, it's worth having them. If we don't have them, then we would have to spend a fortune on our conventional forces that we can't afford.
And you feel we'll be in a weaker
and we've got
position
a pretty. We spend quite a bit on the military compared with about the fourth largest country in the world, and probably the United Kingdom, after the United States, is the second most able country to go into war right away. Certain types of war, more than Russia or China or France. But the nuclear thing is a good thing, same as having in the aircraft carriers. I think if you're armed, you protect your country.
Yes.
The most important job a politician can do is to protect your country from being attacked. Because history teaches us there will always be dangerous regimes out there. There's never going to be an age of Aquarius with peace. We'd all love it.
That's all we want.
But I'm afraid the 60s are over.
That cost of that one. Well, I think we're still waiting for them to vote on it anyway. So obviously, if you have any news before the show is over, we'll update. Let's go to our last story now. A report published today into the Russian doping scandal has found that Russia had operated a state-sponsored doping scheme across the vast majority of summer and winter Olympic sports. The World Anti-Doping Agency found that the state-run scheme was planned and operated from late 2011. Over 580 positive tests were covered up across 30 different sports. International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach described the Commission's findings as a shocking and unprecedented attack on the integrity of the Olympic Games. The IOC will come to a decision on Tuesday about what sanctions to apply. What do we think about this one? Obviously, it's nice to have a Russian representative. I know that it's not the best, it's not a nice story. But how do you think the IOC should deal with this? This corruption. I mean, it's disappointing as a.
It is disappointing. Very
yeah.
sensitive issue, especially for Russians who live abroad. And
yeah.
I think with all politics. How it stands at the minute, 68 sports people, they were basically presented by Russian sport authorities, and I think on 21st of July, Lausanne, Switzerland, city of Lausanne, Court of Arbitrage for Sports will be announcing their decisions. So these 68 people might be participating or not under Russian flag.
Yeah.
The other thing as well, I've been reading, because obviously being bilingual is quite useful. I've been reading on Russian media as well about it. And lots of messages from international sports people coming to, Olympic Committee in Russia. And what they're all saying, yes, those basically athletes who used doping, they have to be banned and they have to be punished. But rest of them, the clear sports people, the athletes, they have to participate and they should be allowed.
And this is the saddest part of the story, isn't that the potential wider ban on those, as we know, athletes who work so hard their entire lives to get to this situation.
What's happening at the moment, they're being banned to being able to compete under flag of their country, and I think this is wrong.
You do agree?
Yeah,
what do you think, David? Do you think?
I entirely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a Canadian guy who turned out to be the guy who won that race about 25 years ago, Johnson or whatever. He turned out to be all drugged up. And nobody's perfect, and I think every country should be allowed to compete in these, and I think this is, I hate to say it, because of the Crimea-Ukraine thing, I think this is a byproduct of, Obama's been trying to stoke up another Cold War with Russia, when I feel we should be calming it down. I mean, Russia's actually not got a bad record apart from Ukraine, and Ukraine is itself a crazy country. I had a Ukrainian uncle, and I can tell you all about my Ukrainian relatives, crazy people. And I think we're vilifying Russia too much, and I think you can deal with Putin. I think you can deal directly with, and I think this is a byproduct of the anti-Russian thing that the European Union and Obama.
You feel there's a bigger agenda there. Do you feel what would be the best way to deal with it then? Individual, case by case, because it is quite a large finding though in this situation, isn't it?
Vlad already just mentioned that they're not going to deal with like case by case.
They should.
It's not going to be an issue.
They should.
We have too little time left till Olympics.
Yeah, it's very, very close as well. It's for 3 weeks, I think. Does this tarnish the entire Olympic, the process, the sportsmanship of the entire competition? Do you
I think there's so much cheating that's been going on for decades by all people and all countries. That I mean, this is the problem. It's not even amateur sports anymore. It was, I think, for the first 2 Olympics, and now it's been professionals ever since. Maybe we should get back to amateur.
Back to basics.
Unfortunately, it's a reputation thing, isn't it? Reputation is very easy to lose and very difficult to gain back.
And is that something you'd be worried about now for the Russian sports?
I think so. I don't think all of them were using doping, you know, and especially about Meldoni. When we know the story.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband bought Meldonat, you know, you can go to any shop and get it.
Yeah.
I mean, a pharmacy in Russia sells it, and he was a bit tired at winter, so he said, especially when all of this came out in media, so brought attention, and he thought, I'd like to try what it's all about, and yes, he felt better. And actually, it's not a doping. It's up to them about WADA and basically, you know, to determine how it can be used. But it was made in Latvia, was presented in Latvia by scientists, and it's what he's saying. It's just, you know, the basically amino kislots and vitamins which help in the muscles to get oxygen back when they train so hard. So that
and I think the other thing is they change what is and isn't allowed quite often as well. So it's quite hard to say. Well, hopefully we'll hear results tomorrow, and hopefully those Russians who haven't, you know,
keep our fingers
they're not on
crossed.
board them. They worked so hard. Will go anyway. Rio's in 3 weeks. Thanks very much for that, guys. We're going to go for another break. We have our interview coming up after this one, so don't go anywhere. See you soon.